The deep hum of the mining vessel Horizon's Edge vibrated through Jackson Reed's quarters as he worked late into the ship's artificial night cycle. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, fine-tuning the quantum resonance collectors that harvested rare minerals from asteroid fields. At 28, Jackson had already earned a reputation as one of the most skilled engineers in the Outer Rim territories, but tonight, his usual focus wavered. Something had been nagging at him for days, a strange signal buried beneath the cosmic background radiation that his modified sensors kept picking up. It wasn't natural, that much he knew, but it wasn't like any human transmission he'd ever encountered either. The signal pulsed again, stronger this time, and Jackson's pulse quickened. He isolated the frequency and began the painstaking process of cleaning up the interference. Hours passed unnoticed as he worked, driven by an inexplicable sense of urgency that seemed to emanate from the mysterious transmission itself. When the voice finally broke through the static, it stopped him cold. "This is Queen Celeste Vera of the Zephyrian Collective, broadcasting on all frequencies to any civilization capable of receiving this message." The voice was unlike anything Jackson had ever heard, melodic yet powerful, carrying an otherworldly quality that made his skin tingle. "My people face extinction. Our fertility rates have plummeted to zero over the past 3 decades. We have exhausted all scientific avenues available to us. If there are any among the stars who possess knowledge of biological restoration or reproductive enhancement, we beg for your assistance. Time grows short, and hope grows dim." Jackson's hands trembled as he replayed the message. An alien species, the first confirmed contact in human history, and they were dying. The implications crashed over him like a tidal wave. This changed everything. But as he listened to the Queen's voice again, something else stirred within him. Beyond the scientific marvel, beyond the historical significance, there was something in her tone that reached into his chest and squeezed his heart. Desperation, yes, but also strength. Dignity in the face of annihilation. And underneath it all, a profound sadness that seemed to echo his own deep-seated loneliness. Jackson had always been solitary by nature, more comfortable with machines than people, more at home in the vast emptiness of space than in crowded colonies. But this voice, this plea from across the void, awakened something in him he'd never experienced before, a desperate need to help, to heal, to bridge the impossible gap between worlds. He worked feverishly through the night, tracing the signal's origin and calculating jump coordinates. The source was 3 systems away, in a region of space that human charts marked as unexplored. By dawn, he had everything he needed to plot a course. Captain Rodriguez wasn't pleased when Jackson burst into her ready room with his discovery. "Absolutely not," she said after hearing his proposal. "We're not equipped for first contact protocols, and certainly not for some kind of rescue mission. We report this to command and let them handle it." "Captain, they might not have time for bureaucracy," Jackson pressed. "I've analyzed the signal degradation, their transmission equipment is failing. If we wait for command to assemble a proper delegation, it could be too late." "And what exactly do you propose we do?" "We're miners, not diplomats or doctors." Jackson pulled up his personal file on the holoscreen between them. "I have degrees in biotechnology and genetic engineering. I worked on the Venus fertility projects before joining the mining guild. Maybe I can't solve their problem, but I might be able to help." Something in his voice must have convinced her, because Captain Rodriguez finally nodded. 3 days, she said. "We investigate, make contact if possible, and then jump back to report to command." "Understood." The journey to the Zephyrian system passed in a blur of anticipation and preparation. Jackson studied every fragment of the transmission, learning what he could about their language patterns and technological capabilities. The universal translator would handle basic communication, but understanding the nuances of an alien culture would require more than technology. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian home system, Jackson's breath caught in his throat. The planet below was stunning. Swirls of deep purple and silver clouds wrapped around continents that glowed with bioluminescent cities. It was beautiful and alien and desperately fragile. Their arrival didn't go unnoticed. Within minutes, an elegant crystalline vessel approached, its hull seeming to shift and flow like liquid starlight. The communication channel crackled to life, and once again, that voice filled Jackson's world. "Unknown vessel, this is Queen Celeste Vera. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." Captain Rodriguez gestured for Jackson to respond. His mouth felt dry as he activated the comm. "Your Majesty, this is the human vessel Horizon's Edge. I'm Jackson Reed, and we received your distress call. We've come to help." The silence that followed stretched for eternity. When the Queen finally spoke again, her voice carried a tremor that made Jackson's heart ache. "Human. I had not dared to hope that anyone would answer. May we meet face to face?" An hour later, Jackson stood in the Horizon's Edge's docking bay as the Zephyrian shuttle settled onto the deck with impossible grace. The airlock cycled, and atmospheric readings confirmed compatibility. When the door finally opened, Jackson felt his world shift on its axis. Queen Celeste Vera was breathtaking in a way that transcended species. Tall and ethereal, with skin that held an opalescent quality like captured moonlight, she moved with liquid grace. Her eyes were large and luminous, shifting between shades of deep violet and silver, and when they met his, Jackson felt a connection that defied explanation. She wore robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself, flowing around her slender form in patterns that hypnotized and mesmerized. But it was her presence that truly captivated him, a regal bearing that spoke of tremendous responsibility carried with unwavering strength, tempered by a vulnerability that she tried desperately to hide. "Jackson Reed," she said, her voice even more beautiful in person. The universal translator rendered her words, but he could hear the musical quality of her native tongue underneath. "I am Celeste. I cannot express how grateful I am that you have come." "Your Majesty," Jackson began, then stopped as she raised a delicate hand. "Please, just Celeste. Titles seem insignificant when species survival is at stake." She stepped closer, and he caught a scent like night-blooming flowers mixed with ozone. "Tell me truly, do you believe there is hope for my people?" Jackson looked into those extraordinary eyes and saw the weight of an entire civilization reflected there. In that moment, he knew that everything had changed. This wasn't just about first contact or scientific discovery anymore. This was about her, this incredible, beautiful, desperate queen who had reached across the stars and somehow touched his soul. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "But I promise you this, I'll do everything in my power to find a way. Your people won't face extinction alone." When Celeste smiled for the first time, Jackson felt as though the stars themselves had aligned to create this perfect, impossible moment. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew with absolute certainty that his life, and his heart, would never be the same. 3 weeks had passed since the first historic meeting between humans and Zephyrians, and the orbital research station Unity now hummed with unprecedented activity. The joint facility, hastily constructed in the space between Earth's delegation ship and the Zephyrian homeworld, had become a beacon of hope, and the stage for discoveries that would change both species forever. Marcus Stone pressed his palm against the cool metal wall of his quarters, watching through the viewport as Zephyr rotated slowly below. The planet's bioluminescent cities pulsed like a heartbeat against the darkness, beautiful and mesmerizing. But it wasn't the alien world that had captured his attention these past weeks, it was one of its inhabitants. A soft chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called, turning from the window. Princess Naya Corvin glided into his quarters with that impossibly graceful movement all Zephyrians seemed to possess. At 26 in human years, though her species aged differently, she was younger than her sister Queen Celeste, but no less captivating. Where Celeste carried herself with regal authority, Naya moved with an easy confidence that spoke of someone comfortable in her own skin. Her opalescent complexion caught the soft lighting, creating patterns that shifted like aurora across her features. She wore a simple laboratory coat over traditional Zephyrian garments, the practical human clothing somehow making her appear even more ethereal by contrast. "Marcus," she said, his name sounding like music in her melodic accent. I've been reviewing the genetic compatibility matrices we developed yesterday. I think I've found something significant. Marcus's pulse quickened, though he wasn't entirely sure if it was due to scientific excitement or her proximity. Over the past weeks, their collaboration had produced remarkable breakthroughs in understanding Zephyrian biology, but it had also produced something else, a connection that grew stronger with each passing day. "Show me," he said, gesturing toward the workstation in the corner of his quarters. As Naya activated the holographic display, her fingers brushed against his hand. The contact sent electricity racing up his arm, and he noticed the slight flush that colored her silver-toned cheeks. The attraction wasn't one-sided, then. "Here," she said, her voice slightly breathless. "When we cross-reference human and Zephyrian reproductive cells at the molecular level, there's an unusual resonance pattern. It's almost as if our species were designed to complement each other." Marcus leaned closer to study the data, acutely aware of her warmth beside him and the intoxicating scent of night-blooming jasmine that seemed to emanate from her skin. "This is incredible," he murmured. "The compatibility rate is far higher than we initially calculated." "There's more," Naya said, calling up additional files. "I've been conducting theoretical models based on the preliminary fertility treatments we've developed. The success rates are promising, but..." She hesitated, biting her lower lip in a gesture that made Marcus's heart skip. "But," he prompted gently. "The process would require unprecedented cooperation between our species. Not just scientific collaboration, but personal intimacy on a level that many of my people find challenging." Her luminous eyes met his, and he saw vulnerability there that she rarely allowed anyone to witness. Marcus understood the implications immediately. The Zephyrians were a proud, ancient race with strict cultural protocols governing interaction with other species. The idea of such intimate cooperation would be scandalous to many. "And how do you feel about it?" he asked quietly. Naya was silent for a long moment, her gaze dropping to her hands. When she looked up again, her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "I feel that my people's survival is more important than outdated traditions. But I also feel..." She took a shaky breath. "I feel things I shouldn't feel, for someone I shouldn't feel them for." The confession hung in the air between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Marcus reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently took her hands in his. Her skin was warm and impossibly soft, with a subtle luminescence that fascinated him. "Naya," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "These feelings you think you shouldn't have, I share them. Every moment we spend together, every discovery we make, every time you smile. I fall a little deeper." Her breath caught, and one of those shimmering tears finally escaped to trail down her cheek. "This is forbidden," she whispered. "Royal blood does not mix with alien species. The Council of Nobles would never approve, and my sister." "Your sister is in love with Jackson," Marcus pointed out gently. "I've seen the way they look at each other during the joint meetings. If anyone would understand, it would be Celeste." "But I'm not the queen," Naya protested. "I don't have the authority to defy convention so brazenly. I'm bound by different rules, different expectations." Marcus lifted his hands to frame her face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "Then we'll make new rules. New expectations. Together." Before she could protest further, he leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, giving her every opportunity to pull away. Instead, she melted against him, her arms sliding around his neck as she kissed him back with a passion that set his soul on fire. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Naya's eyes had shifted to a deeper violet, and her skin glowed brighter with emotion. "This complicates everything," she said, but her hands remained linked behind his neck. "The best discoveries usually do," Marcus replied, pressing his forehead against hers. "But they're also the ones worth fighting for." Over the following days, their relationship deepened even as they continued their scientific work. They stole moments together between meetings and experiments, quiet conversations in empty corridors, shared meals in Marcus's quarters, late nights in the laboratory where their hands would brush as they worked and linger a moment longer than necessary. Naya began teaching Marcus about Zephyrian culture and history, while he shared stories of Earth and humanity's journey to the stars. They discovered that despite their different origins, they shared similar values, dreams, and fears. Love, it seemed, truly was universal. But their growing bond didn't go unnoticed. Whispers began to circulate among the Zephyrian delegation, and disapproving glances followed Naya whenever she appeared with Marcus. The pressure mounted daily, culminating in a confrontation that would test everything they'd built together. "Princess Naya," came the stern voice of Elder Thrain, one of the most conservative members of the Zephyrian Council. He appeared in the laboratory doorway like a storm cloud, his silver hair gleaming under the artificial lights and his expression thunderous. Naya immediately stepped away from Marcus, her posture becoming formally rigid. "Elder Thrain. How may I assist you?" "You may assist by remembering your position and your duty to your people," he said coldly, his gaze flicking dismissively to Marcus. "This association with the human is unseemly and dangerous. You will cease all personal contact immediately." Marcus felt anger flare in his chest, but Naya's subtle gesture kept him silent. This was her battle to fight, at least initially. "My association with Marcus Stone has led to breakthrough discoveries that may save our species," Naya said calmly, though Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. "I fail to see how scientific collaboration could be considered unseemly." "Do not insult my intelligence, child," Elder Thrain snapped. "The entire station knows of your inappropriate feelings for this alien. Such behavior is beneath your station and threatens the purity of our bloodline." "Purity?" Marcus couldn't stay silent any longer. "Your bloodline is dying, Elder. Without intervention, there won't be any purity left to protect." Elder Thrain's eyes flashed dangerously. "You dare speak to me of our people's survival, human? Your kind has known us for mere weeks, while we have maintained our civilization for millennia. And yet," Naya interjected softly, "in all those millennia, we never faced extinction until now. Perhaps it's time to consider that our old ways aren't adequate for our new challenges." The elder drew himself up to his full, imposing height. "Your sister may indulge in her infatuation with the human engineer, but she is queen and may make her own mistakes. You, however, are still subject to the Council's authority. You will end this liaison, or we will find ways to end it for you." The threat hung heavy in the air. Marcus stepped closer to Naya, his presence offering silent support, but she raised a hand to stop him from speaking. "I understand your position, Elder Thrain," she said with quiet dignity. "But I respectfully disagree with your assessment. Marcus and I will continue our work together, both scientific and personal. If you wish to challenge that decision, you may take it up with Queen Celeste." Elder Thrain's face darkened further. "This is not over, Princess. Mark my words, no good will come of mixing our bloodlines with alien contamination." After he left, Naya sagged against the laboratory table, the weight of the confrontation finally showing. Marcus immediately pulled her into his arms, holding her close as she trembled with suppressed emotion. "Maybe he's right," she whispered against his chest. "Maybe this is too dangerous, too complicated." "Hey," Marcus said, tilting her chin up to meet his eyes. "Look at me. Do you love me?" Her breath caught at the direct question. They hadn't spoken the words aloud yet, though the emotion had been growing between them for days. "Yes," she whispered, as if the admission were both a gift and a surrender. "I love you, Marcus Stone. Against all reason, against all tradition, against everything I was taught to believe, I love you." "Then that's all that matters," he said, kissing her forehead tenderly. "We'll face whatever comes together. I promise you that." As they held each other in the quiet laboratory, surrounded by the fruits of their collaboration and the uncertainty of their future, both knew that they had crossed a line from which there could be no return. Their love had become a beacon of hope for both species, and perhaps the key to their mutual salvation. But outside the laboratory walls, forces were already moving to tear them apart, and the greatest challenges to their forbidden alliance were yet to come. Stellar Hearts. Part 3, Hearts Across the Stars. Devon Cross had always believed that the stars held infinite possibilities, but he never imagined one of those possibilities would be losing his heart to an alien princess who seemed determined to hate everything about him. The observation deck of the Unity station had become his refuge over the past month, a place where he could watch the dance of ships between the human delegation vessel and the Zephyrian homeworld. As the primary pilot for supply runs and diplomatic shuttles, Devon had logged more flight hours between the two worlds than anyone else, but today he wasn't thinking about navigation charts or fuel efficiency. He was thinking about her. Serafina Vale stood at the far end of the deck, her silhouette elegant against the starfield beyond. Even from this distance, Devon could see the tension in her posture, the way she held herself apart from both the human and Zephyrian personnel who moved through the common area. She had been avoiding him for 3 days now, ever since their last conversation had ended in harsh words and wounded pride. Devon ran a hand through his dark hair and sighed. When Captain Rodriguez had first assigned him to transport the Zephyrian noble delegation, he'd expected diplomacy and protocol. What he'd gotten instead was Serafina, beautiful, brilliant, and absolutely infuriating in her determination to view every human gesture as either condescension or conquest. "Still brooding over our resident ice princess?" asked Jackson, settling into the chair beside him with 2 cups of coffee. "She's not made of ice," Devon protested, accepting the drink gratefully. "She's just, complicated." "Complicated is one word for it," Jackson said with a grin. "I heard she nearly threw a data pad at Lieutenant Harris yesterday when he suggested the Zephyrians might benefit from human agricultural techniques." Devon winced. That sounded like Serafina. In the 6 weeks since first contact, she had made it clear that she viewed human assistance as necessary but distasteful, a bitter medicine her people were forced to swallow to survive. "She's been hurt," Devon said quietly, watching as Serafina turned from the viewport, her opalescent skin catching the light like captured starfire. "Her whole world is dying, and she has to smile and accept help from strangers. That can't be easy." "You're making excuses for her," Jackson observed. "Maybe," Devon admitted. "Or maybe I see something in her that she's trying very hard to hide." As if summoned by their conversation, Serafina approached their section of the deck. She moved with the fluid grace common to her species, but Devon had learned to read the subtle signs of her moods in the set of her shoulders and the tilt of her head. Right now, she was angry about something. "Pilot Cross," she said formally, her accent making his name sound like music despite her obvious irritation. "I require transport to the surface. There has been another incident at the Northern Research Facility." Devon set down his coffee and stood. "What kind of incident?" "The kind that requires immediate investigation," she replied curtly, already turning toward the shuttle bay. Jackson caught Devon's arm as he moved to follow. "Be careful," he murmured. "She's more upset than usual." The shuttle ride to Zephyr's surface started in tense silence. Devon focused on the navigation, stealing glances at his passenger through the reflection in the cockpit glass. Serafina sat rigid in her seat, her luminous violet eyes fixed on the approaching planet below. "Beautiful world," Devon offered, trying to break the ice. "It's dying," she replied flatly. "The fertility treatments are showing promise. Marcus and Princess Naya have made real progress. My sister throws herself at a human, abandoning centuries of tradition, and you call that progress?" The words came out sharper than intended, and Devon saw Serafina immediately regret them. He set the shuttle to autopilot and turned to face her fully. "Is that what this is about? You're angry at Naya for falling in love?" "I'm angry at the situation," Serafina snapped, then seemed to deflate slightly. "I'm angry that we're so desperate we have to accept charity from strangers. I'm angry that our ancient civilization has been reduced to begging for genetic samples from aliens we've known for 2 months. And yes, I'm angry that my sister has forgotten her duty in favor of human infatuation." "Love isn't infatuation," Devon said quietly. And it's not charity we're offering, it's partnership. Serafina laughed bitterly. Partnership? Your people will save us, and in return will be forever in your debt. Our children will carry human genes, our culture will be influenced by human ideas, and within a few generations, what will be left of the Zephyrians? Will be absorbed, assimilated, lost. The pain in her voice hit Devon like a physical blow. For all her prickly pride and defensive anger, Serafina was terrified. Not of death, but of her people losing themselves in the process of survival. That's not what we want, he said earnestly. No one's trying to change who you are. Aren't you? She turned those luminous eyes on him, and Devon felt his breath catch. Every human I meet wants to help, to fix, to improve. You look at our world and see problems to solve rather than a culture to respect. I look at your world and see beauty, Devon said honestly. I see a people who've built something incredible over thousands of years. I see cities that glow like captured starlight and art that moves my soul even though I don't understand the cultural context. I see individuals like you, brilliant, passionate, fighting for something bigger than themselves. For a moment, Serafina's mask slipped, and Devon saw vulnerability beneath the anger. Then she turned away, her voice barely above a whisper. You see what you want to see. They completed the journey to the research facility in silence, but something had shifted between them. When they arrived at the northern complex, a crystalline structure that seemed to grow from the landscape itself, they found chaos waiting. Lady Serafina, called researcher Keelan, rushing to meet them as they disembarked. Thank the ancestors you're here. We've had a complete breakdown in the fertility stabilization chamber. Serafina immediately switched into professional mode. Show me. Devon followed as they made their way through corridors filled with Zephyrian researchers and human technicians working side by side. The collaboration that had seemed impossible just weeks ago was now routine, but Devon could see the strain on everyone's faces. The stabilization chamber was indeed a disaster. What should have been a precisely calibrated environment for nurturing the experimental fertility treatments was now a tangle of melted components and failed systems. What happened? Serafina demanded, her hands already moving over diagnostic displays. Power surge from the planetary grid, Keelan explained. The human backup systems couldn't integrate properly with our technology. We've lost 3 weeks of research and possibly irreplaceable genetic samples. Devon stepped forward, studying the damage with an engineer's eye. I might be able to help, he offered. This isn't a shuttle engine, pilot, Serafina said dismissively. No, it's not, Devon agreed calmly. But I have a degree in quantum mechanics and 5 years of experience with hybrid technology integration. Unless you prefer to wait for a specialist from Earth. Serafina stared at him for a long moment, clearly weighing her pride against practical necessity. Finally, she nodded curtly. What do you need? Working together to repair the chamber was a revelation for both of them. Devon's unconventional approach to problem-solving complemented Serafina's deep understanding of Zephyrian technology. What should have taken days was accomplished in hours, and by the time they finished, both were exhausted but exhilarated. That was impressive, Serafina admitted as they watched the systems come back online. So was that harmonic frequency adjustment you made to the quantum resonators, Devon replied. Where did you learn to do that? I designed most of this facility, she said quietly. Before the crisis, I was head of advanced research development. I've spent my life trying to push the boundaries of what our technology could accomplish. Devon looked at her with new respect. You're not just a noble protesting human involvement. You're a scientist who's been working on this problem longer than anyone. For all the good it's done, Serafina said bitterly. Years of research, and I couldn't save my own people. It took humans to show us possibilities we'd never considered. Sometimes it takes an outside perspective to see what's been there all along, Devon said gently. That doesn't diminish what you've accomplished, it builds on it. They were interrupted by excited voices from the main laboratory. Rushing to investigate, they found researcher Keelan practically vibrating with excitement over a data display. Lady Seraphina. The repairs have done more than restore functionality, they've improved it. The integration of human and Zephyrian technology has created resonance patterns we never achieved before. The fertility enhancement rates have increased by 40%. Seraphina stared at the results, her expression cycling through disbelief, hope, and something that might have been wonder. This is what we've been trying to achieve for years. We achieved it, Devon said softly. Together. She turned to him then, really looking at him for perhaps the first time since they'd met. I owe you an apology, she said. I've been so afraid of losing what we are that I couldn't see the possibility of becoming something more. You don't owe me anything, Devon replied. But maybe you could give me a chance to prove that not all humans want to change you. Some of us just want to know you. The flight back to the station was different from the journey down. Seraphina sat beside Devon in the co-pilot's seat instead of isolating herself in the passenger compartment, and for the first time, they talked as equals rather than adversaries. Tell me about Earth, she said as they cleared the planet's atmosphere. So Devon told her about blue skies and ocean waves, about cities that sprawled across continents and wilderness areas preserved in their natural state. He spoke of humanity's journey to the stars, driven by curiosity and the need to explore, to understand, to connect. In return, Seraphina shared stories of Zephyra's golden age, when their people had achieved a harmony between nature and technology that created art from their very existence. She spoke of the grief of watching that harmony slowly crumble as their population dwindled, of the desperate hope that now flickered brighter than it had in decades. We're not so different, Devon observed as they docked with the station. Both our species have always been driven by the desire to reach for something greater than ourselves. Perhaps, Seraphina agreed. Though I must admit, I never expected to find that commonality with a human pilot who thinks regulations are more like suggestions. Devon grinned. You noticed that, did you? I notice everything, she said, but there was warmth in her voice now instead of criticism. As they prepared to disembark, Devon caught her hand gently. Seraphina. Would you have dinner with me tonight? Not as a diplomatic necessity or a professional obligation. Just, because I'd like to spend time with you. She looked down at their joined hands, his warm and tan from years of shuttle duty, hers luminescent and graceful, and for a moment, Devon thought she would refuse. Then she smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. I would like that, she said softly. Though I should warn you, I have very particular opinions about human cuisine. I'll take my chances, Devon laughed. As they walked through the station together, no longer adversaries but not yet lovers, both felt the shift in the cosmic order that occurs when two hearts begin to recognize each other across the vast distances of space and species. The stars that had brought them together continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the boundaries that mortals created and the love that transcended them all. But in a small corner of the universe, on a station suspended between two worlds, Devon Cross and Seraphina Vale had discovered something that might just be worth fighting for, the possibility that difference wasn't something to be feared or overcome, but something to be celebrated and cherished. The future remained uncertain, but for the first time since the crisis began, both human and Zephyrian hearts dared to hope that the stars had aligned not for destruction, but for a love that could bridge any distance and heal any wound. In the observation deck where their story had begun, the stars continued their eternal watch, witness to the small miracle of two souls finding each other in the infinite darkness and choosing to shine together rather than alone.